Welcome into the Paul Farrington Show. Paul, joined by Robert Ziggy Ziegler at the University of Virginia and producer Zach Bloomquist, the best executive producer in the game. It's pretty funny, Ziggy. On his way over here today, Zach's like, hey, he gives a call. And he goes, hey, I'm driving home from work, about to stop and get some food. Is it cool if I'm eating during the podcast? I'm like, sure, just, keep your mic muted if we don't want to hear. We don't want to hear Zach chowing down on his wings or whatever he gets. But he walks into the house. And he's full on got like a catering tray. It's just kind of ridiculous for 20 wings here. This is what Zach walks in with. So not only was he ready to eat, but he basically brought an entire meal here. The wings, the sauce, the cookies, the Snapple. And we're just getting a kick out of him showing up to eat with an entire tray here for the episode.
Well, I'll tell you, this is why it's so important for your restaurant to have the best food packaging services available to you. We're not going to promote any companies because we're not sponsored. But if a major executive at a food production, like a food goods distribution company, is listening to this, feel free to reach out. We will absolutely promote you.
Yeah, producer Zach
promoting the Rancho Gordo Bean Club right here.
Yeah, right. Producer Zach is the Bean Club. Are you kidding me? Producer Zach is always chowing down during the show. So if anyone wants to sponsor that segment, it could be food time with Zach as we do the show here.
All the food drafts.
As we do the show, Zach is either it's pretty much one thing. There are two things. He's either eating or sleeping during the show. And today we get eating, producer Zach. So if you're enjoying this content, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. It's April 1st, April Fool's Day. Last year we had the great Ziggy becoming a Packer fan clip, that little segment. Unfortunately, this year Ziggy said he can't do it because people might actually believe it too much and it might spread around. So this year, to my knowledge, we don't have any April Fool's takes, but potentially, you never know with this show.
You should keep an eye out during this show. It's possible there's going to be a little subtle April Fool's messaging mixed in here.
One more update here. The PFS bracket challenge. Why don't we just run through the top 5 here? Just see how people are doing. Just an update.
We get it. You picked all the one seeds.
Just an update.
Congratulations.
Just an update in the big group. The group with over 250 people. Thanks to everyone for signing up. It's awesome. We have Brandon's bracket. He picked Duke to win in first place. Then if you go down to second, familiar face there, Paul Farrington. And in second, looking forward to gifting myself a shirt from my own show. Zach Brown in second. I didn't know that we had Zach Brown as a listener on this. Then we got DJ Acorns and M. Talby. Those are your top 5 in the big group. And then in the members only, well, familiar name there at the top of the list. P-Ruff, that's me, in first. Followed by Corey Brown, Hugh Carey, Bob Farrington, my father's in fourth. And Harrison Gorman is in fifth. It's pretty funny. I had 2 Farringtons in the top 5 of the members only. So we'll see. I'm rooting for Florida and Houston because if they win, I should win quite a few pools. I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, all this is, you just get so lucky. The highs of picking the right team and the lows of having your team lose in the last second are really fun during this tournament. So I've been enjoying this. Like Ziggy, I tried to tell everyone that this really was a year of the 1 seeds to me. And I can't really claim too much credit because it's not bold to take the 1 seeds. But as I said in the reel that was put out, so many people don't do it that there might actually just be a little bit of an advantage in doing it. Today's episode is going to be a lot of fun. We're going to get into some NFL draft content, Ashton Jeanty rumors flying around, what's going to happen with those top 3 picks, Jaxson Dart, and Jack's not feeling well today. He was upset he can't make it. Jaxson Dart is flying up draft boards. We're going to hit on all that. Jaire Alexander is in the news with Brian Gutekunst at his press conference at the owners meeting. But we're going to start, Ziggy, today with a little bit of big deal or no deal. And I'm willing to leave a little bit of wiggle room in between here. So we got some storylines that have been picking up lately. I want your opinion on whether or not this is a big deal or no deal at all. Let's start with Aaron Rodgers working out with DK Metcalf. They worked out together over at UCLA. And Mike Tomlin was talking about meeting with Aaron Rodgers, saying that he was enjoying getting the chance to be a little more intimate was one of the words he used, a little more intimate with Aaron Rodgers, getting to know the quarterback before potentially making a move. And Rodgers has been linked to the Steelers now for a long time, but the rumors have really heated up since the Vikings came out and said J.J. McCarthy's the guy, although they still seem somewhat in the mix. And the Giants signed Russell Wilson. There's a bunch of moves that have happened that have now led everyone to believe Rodgers will eventually become a Steeler. But right now, as you see it, all these meetings with Pittsburgh and working out with DK. Is this a big deal to you saying, all right, he's going to be a Steeler?
I think what I find baffling about this, and why I think, honestly, the Pittsburgh Steelers should consider just checking out of the Aaron Rodgers thing entirely.
Oh.
There's one option for Aaron Rodgers at this point if he wants to play in the NFL, and it's in Pittsburgh. New York has moved on. I think he either told New York no or they got fed up. Russell Wilson did not go there to play behind Aaron Rodgers. The Vikings haven't said they're not going to sign Aaron Rodgers, but every indication, including Kevin O'Connell coming out and saying, yeah, we were interested in Rodgers. We thought about it a lot, but we want to stick with JJ McCarthy, even if we're not going to guarantee him the starting job, I think means they're out. There's only one team Aaron Rodgers has a chance for playing for next year, and it's Pittsburgh. So why hasn't he signed yet? Why is he dragging them along? Like, I get he's doing this stuff, right? He's working out with DK. He's having great meetings with Mike Tomlin. Dude, sign the contract. It's over. You've had your free agency. He got to enjoy free agency for the first time in his career. I bet it was a great time. But I'm finally on team. Move on, Aaron. Sign with the Steelers. Get it over with. I don't know what they could possibly be negotiating at this point other than him praying that Kevin O'Connell's going to pick up the phone.
Well, I think that's exactly what's going on. I think that Aaron Rodgers wants to go to the Vikings and is hoping that that becomes an option, whether it's JJ McCarthy having a slower recovery than they're anticipating, or maybe just not being at the level they want him to by the time training camp rolls around, or mini camps. I do think that this is kind of a situation with Aaron where everyone's always ripping Aaron Rodgers. I know we have a lot of people who listen to this show who probably don't like Aaron Rodgers being Packers fans and the way that fell apart. But I actually don't think there's anything wrong with what Aaron's doing. He wants to be a Viking, clearly, and he's hoping that becomes an option. So he's waiting
Rodgers
it out.
Has a right to say, I want to be a Viking. But that means the Steelers shouldn't be content just letting their second option drag on indefinitely.
Well, that's the Steelers' problem. That's not Aaron Rodgers doing anything wrong. He's trying to do what's best for him.
This is why I think if Aaron Rodgers isn't willing to commit, the Steelers just need to bring in a different guy and move on.
Sure, yeah. Well, but what I'm saying here is that's a Steelers problem, and I'm with you there. For everyone who's saying Aaron just wants attention and Aaron loves the camera on him, I think you're full of crap. I think Aaron he might have used.
Aaron Rodgers doesn't love to have the camera on him and isn't big into attention. That's the line you're going for here.
I think right now where he's at in his career, I don't think Aaron Rodgers is looking at this situation going, I want all the attention on me so that I can draw this process out. And then when I make the decision, it's all over the news. I don't think that he cares about that right now. I really don't. Maybe earlier in his career he did, but I think that he's trying to do what's best for Aaron Rodgers, and I don't blame him. So I just don't give a crap. Like let him do his thing. And if the Steelers want to get out of the business, they should do that for them. But this is not an Aaron Rodgers problem that he's trying to get the best option moving forward. That's just my thought on this is he's fine doing this. And if he gets to Minnesota, good for Aaron Rodgers because that's his best chance to win. I don't think he'll win in Pittsburgh. There's a better shot than if he had gone to New York or Indianapolis or Tennessee. But he wants to go to Minnesota, and he's going to hold out on that until it's clear that that's not on the table. And I guess to him, it's still there. That's my feelings around Rodgers. Let's go over big deal or no deal, Ziggy. Did you see T-Mac, Arizona stud receiver? There's a video that leaked from him, I believe, during his freshman year of college. And I'm going to enjoy getting into this. He said, quote, I don't watch football at all. His friend or whoever was recording said, is it hard to watch film then if you don't like watching football? He goes, I don't like watching film either. I don't ever need to watch it by myself, though, because we go over it as a receiver group. Again, this was said during his freshman year at Arizona. The last 2 years, just for anyone wondering how his stats looked, 1,400, 2 yards, 10 touchdowns, 1,300, 19 yards, 8 touchdowns at Arizona for the guy who doesn't like watching or studying football. Is that a big deal to you, Ziggy, heading into the draft? If you were a team looking to draft T-Mac, are you saying that this is a problem?
I'll tell you who hated watching football more than just about anything else in the world. Curtis Martin. If you watch his Hall of Fame speech, he talks about it. He says, yeah, I never really liked football that much. I honestly kind of hated it, but I was good at it and paid pretty well. I just did it for a while and then got out at the right time. I think as long as you're doing your job, and he says that, right? I don't like watching film, but we go over it as a group. I sort of do what I have to. Like, his job is to do what the coaches ask of him. And as long as he's willing to do that, I don't think you have to pretend that you absolutely love the sport and can't imagine anything better to do with your day than watching film. You can be perfectly good. You can even be great. You can be a Hall of Famer and not care about football at all. So no, as long as he's taking care of business, and I don't see any indication that he's like skipping practices or refusing to watch film or not doing what coaches tell him, I think there's no reason to worry about this. No deal.
I think that there's some degree, it's definitely a little deal at least, where you don't want. And again, this is what I hate about this coming out right now is we're talking about his freshman year. This is years ago now. And when you're a freshman in college, what are you, 17, 18 years old? So I don't like seeing this video leaking now and everyone's making a big deal saying he's not committed. He doesn't want to do this or that. When we're talking about a guy who had a great career and now people are ripping him because of something he said when he was 17 years old or 18 years old, his freshman year, before he really flew up draft boards. I just hate that that's kind of the world we're in right now. But given that he said that, given that he did say that, it's a little bit of a deal because you want to make sure, to me, that he's not still acting like that. I want a guy. No. I understand what you're saying. You don't it doesn't need to be your whole world, but I don't want my receiver publicly coming out saying basically saying I don't care.
Well, this wasn't public, right? This was something that leaked. Yeah,
no, I just don't want that coming out. I would like to at least, you want your receiver, if you're taking him in the first round, watching film on his own to a degree. It doesn't need to be your whole day. No, not everyone has to be Tom Brady, but you don't want your guy basically saying I don't watch film by myself ever.
Yeah, no, I get that. And I think that's probably because he was a kid when he said
that's what I'm saying.
But I'll always remember, producer Zach, remember Jordan Cameron for the Dolphins?
Love Jordan Cameron. No.
Yeah, and then he retired because he got 1 million concussions. And afterwards he came out and said, almost no one in the NFL loves football. I mean, there's crazy guys like Peyton Manning that love this game. They said, most of us are here for the paycheck.
Oh, I totally get it.
Nobody really loves, he said, look, here's what football is. It's watching a bunch of film. And then you go out when it's 5 degrees out and get slammed by someone who's 300 pounds for an afternoon, get hurt and move on.
Yeah.
Most guys in the NFL, I really think this is true. And plenty of players talk about this. Don't really like the game. As long as you are doing enough to succeed. And I'm willing to put a 18-year-old saying, yeah, I don't like watching film all that much in the he's a kid, he's not mature yet category. People who want their football players to love the game above all else, I think, are just not being realistic.
I agree with you. My thought is if you're in the pre-draft meetings and T-Mac's just giving the vibe that he doesn't care, then that's a problem. But I don't think that's it. So that's why I'm actually annoyed. I'm annoyed watching all these reactions saying he should drop out of the first round. It would be crazy if we took him in the 20s.
What you do. You ask his coaches, did he work hard and succeed?
Yes.
And frankly, to have the level of success he did in college, he probably does, right? This is a guy who consistently improved throughout his college career. He's clearly working hard. As long as the coaches say, yeah, he played well, he worked hard, he did what we asked him to do, who cares?
But again, I still don't, even if this is the case, I still don't want, I don't like this. I wouldn't want to see news like this coming out. And I just say in these meetings, hey, if you don't want to do this, all the time. I'm sorry, I wouldn't say that in a meeting, but if you're more remember Kyler Murray, all the instances with Kyler Murray not watching film and how big that thing blew up, just keep anything like this behind closed doors. If you don't have to be Tom Brady or Peyton Manning, but you do need to have some degree, I think, of a strong work ethic in the NFL, especially if I'm going to use a first round pick on a guy. So I think it's a little bit of a deal in that I want to see that the mentality changed a bit. But I'm not going to throw him off my draft board because of something he said 2 years ago.
Now, also, if you haven't seen this video, you should watch what this video is. It's a guy on YouTube talking to him on a vlog while he's eating in the dining hall.
It's like a dining hall, yeah.
It's he's just talking off the cuff, eating some food. I don't even know if he meant what he said. I don't know. I think this is a ridiculous.
Yeah, it's a absurd story. The last one, we'll go over to Zach's Miami Dolphins here. Tyreek Hill over the weekend tweeted out, peace sign. And of course, with the speculations about Tyreek wanting out of Miami, that blew up. People are now saying, is he like, does he want to get out of here for sure now? Is this something that's going to happen? Mike McDaniel came out on Monday and said, I can certainly say with certainty that at this certain moment, we are fully planning to move forward for a better version of our relationship with Tyreek. I love Mike McDaniel. He's just
Tyreek is just, did you see the thing he tweeted earlier today, a couple hours ago?
Yes. Well, I'm assuming, but what are you talking about?
When there was some guy on Twitter that said Tyreek Hill would be okay of a trade, and he retweeted that saying another false narrative.
Yeah. He's also come out and remember after the final regular season game, he said, I'm out, bro. Walked that back on Kay Adams' show, saying my family loves it here. I love it here. It's just, even McDaniel acknowledged it. He said Tyreek's been in the building often. He's known for his social antics on social media. We're in a good spot with Tyreek. I mean, that's kind of a crazy thing to say about your star receiver. Like he's a lunatic on social media, but that's true about him. So I expect him to be with the Dolphins. It's always a circus with it. This is what makes Justin Jefferson so great. Again, what we've talked about, Ziggy, you never have to deal with this stuff with Jefferson. And, it is a distraction. But as far as Tyreek leaving the Dolphins, I think it's no big deal. This is just par for the course as far as Tyreek Hill goes.
Honest, I don't care if he leaves.
Well, you don't care at this point?
No.
Well, because you think your team sucks.
Well, yeah.
Way.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, but if you believe that you could win the Super Bowl.
Oh, yeah, sure, I'll take him. But I don't
I'll take him.
People are acting like he's Antonio Brown.
I could see. He's not.
So here is what I trust. If he is under contract, Tyreek Hill is going to show up and play his best. Now, maybe he'll complain about it. Maybe he'll have some shenanigans. He'll say weird stuff on Twitter. He'll go back and forth. He might express some displeasure. But I am 100% sure when it comes down to it, Tyreek Hill will play his best football for you.
I agree.
Antonio Brown of the Raiders was never going to be voted team captain. Tyreek Hill was.
Yeah, that does say something. So I expect Tyreek Hill to be a Dolphin next year. If he does get traded, I still think he has quite a bit left. Maybe 2 more years, a year or two, of really good Tyreek Hill. So, yeah, if you believe in the Dolphins, if you're a Dolphin fan and you think that you can be something next year, you want Tyreek Hill on this team. Zach's just completely given up. If
I were the Dolphins, I would really consider trading Tyreek Hill because I think this is the last year you can really get something.
That's
from
a
him.
separate question, and I agree with you.
Like, I think moving off from him, like the Raiders moved off from Devontae Adams, I think is the thing to do. Just to let another team deal with. Tyreek Hill is going to look for a contract next year because there's nothing guaranteed in 2026 and the rest. And I don't think the Dolphins are going anywhere. But you shouldn't trade him because, I don't think he's asking for a trade. I think it might come to that position later in the season. I don't know. But I'd be willing to move off of him.
Agreed.
Yeah, that's a completely different discussion, I think. And it's, as I just said, I agree with you in that if you don't believe the Dolphins can win next year, you probably want to try and get something for the Dolphins are in a tough spot though because of that contract that they gave Tua. All these teams that get handed out these massive contracts to quarterbacks where, you can't really blow the whole thing up, but you could start the mini rebuild at least.
Oh, we could blow it up. We'll just keep paying them and we'll blow it up.
Blow it up around Tua?
Yeah, blow it up around Tua.
I don't know if you could blow it up until you really blow it up or until you move on from Tua.
I mean,
if there's a team in the NFL that's willing to take his contract, you can move off of it right now.
Tua's?
Yeah.
And how many teams do you think are willing to take that?
The Raiders.
Maybe more than 0. I'm not sure.
Well, it's a lot of money to a guy that if you don't, so far in his career has shown that he's got a decently high floor, but can Tua elevate a team to that Super Bowl contending level? I think most teams would say no right now. A few years ago, it looked like when the Dolphins were the 1 seed for most of the year, you thought, okay, this is the version of Tua that could get paid this money. But you also kind of knew in the back of your mind, all right, the weapons are so good. Defense was balling out before they got hurt. That's this whole problem now with the quarterbacks getting paid this much money is you're paying guys who are very good, elite money. And now as the cap goes up, it'll continue to look like less and less, which is the advantage here. But right now, I don't think there are too many teams that would take a Tua contract. And I think the Dolphins are stuck in this sort of purgatory. But trading Tyreek would be a step in. So I guess let's just put it on the table here. If you were the Dolphins for next year, do you think that with keeping Tyreek, keeping the whole gang together, what do you think the ceiling is for them? A divisional round?
I think you can make the divisional round. And honestly, I think if Tua is healthier next year, which you never know, and the offense runs, it's like I think last year was about as bad as you could go for that Dolphins team. I think that next year they will be better, and I think a divisional round or maybe even more is possible.
A lot went wrong with the
defense
injuries
to improve and need to bring back the old offense.
Yeah, a lot went wrong with the injuries. Tua missed some time, and they were still right there at the end of the season. So I like look, if you could get a good deal out of a Tyreek trade, if you could get a strong haul, I think most Dolphins fans would get it. But I also believe that quite a few Dolphins fans think they could be decent next year. Not Zach, clearly. But this team has potential to compete.
I mean, there's a reason that, like, within the AFC East, like the preseason odds, the Dolphins are up there.
Yeah, they're a good team. They're a solid team. It's just, it feels like they're capped right now. So
yeah, and honestly, I don't like their chance of beating Buffalo.
No one does.
For the division. And if you can't win the division, you're not going to win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, they're not good enough.
Move on if the price is right. But if teams are hesitant to hand a huge contract to Tyreek and they're only offering you like a day 3 pick, keep them and see what you can do.
They're not good enough right now to go into Baltimore, Kansas City, Buffalo, do 2 or 3 of those in a playoff run. Unless, I'd love to be proven wrong. I like the Dolphins. Last one here, Ziggy. A big deal or no deal? Brian Gutekunst at the NFL owners meeting on Monday was asked about the possibility of Jaire Alexander returning to the Packers in 2025. He said, obviously a very, very good player for us. We have some time here to kind of figure that out, see what's best for him and for the organization. It could be a possibility, absolutely. We're in the middle of that right now. Do you think that this is Gutekunst actually being serious, like that Jaire could return? Or is he just trying to boost trade value, get someone to make a move for their guy instead of having to release him? Big deal or no deal?
I don't think this has anything to do with his trade value because there is not a team if a team wanted Jaire Alexander, they would have traded for him by now. I really think this is true. I don't think, and certainly saying to the media, like, oh, maybe we'll keep him. I don't know, guys. That's not going to affect his trade value in any material way. We've talked about it on this show a lot. I know Packers fans are very eager to move off Jaire Alexander, but when you have the cap space to keep him, and he's a player who can contribute when he's healthy, people early on in the offseason were saying, like, let's bundle Jaire Alexander and like a first for Max Crosby or something. Jaire Alexander is basically no trade value. I think you would be lucky to get a 5th or a 6th round pick for him because I think people around the NFL are very down on him for the same reason Packers fans are. You don't want to pay a guy top 5 money if he's going to be missing a whole bunch of games. And last year was the single, it was coming off these 2 seasons, his trade value will never be lower. If he just plays 16 games next year, his trade value will increase. Mm-hmm. It's that simple. 17 games, even better. Yeah. I think, and we talked about it on the show, I think the only way the Packers can truly have an elite defense next year, or at least an elite secondary, is by keeping Jaire and just hoping he returns to form. I don't see why the Packers should be eager to offload Jaire for basically no draft capital return for the team because he still has a chance to contribute. He's not a bum. He's not a terrible player. He's just been hurt a lot.
The only way that would make sense is if he just became such a pain in the ass behind the scenes that you're like, we got to get rid of this guy.
And I don't think that's going to happen. It
doesn't sound like that's happening.
Issues. They talked to him about it. And it's not like Jaire is sitting here demanding a trade request. Why would he? The Packers are paying him extremely generously for what he provides. I don't see any reason to think that this situation has gone belly up. I think he probably understands. I've missed a lot of games. I've got to play better to prove my worth. And I think he's probably motivated to go out and play his best football for Green Bay next.
Well, here's the situation if you're a Packers fan that wants to get rid of Jaire. Like, here's what I'd present to you. To me, he is clearly the best cornerback on your roster right now, and he is going to be healthy heading into the season. Yes, he's had all the injury concerns for now for a couple of years. He hasn't played a ton of games. He should be healthy coming into this year. If you look at that cornerback room and you say, can you really say to yourself, I believe in Keyshawn Nixon. I believe in Nate Obbs. I believe in Carrington Valentine. Those 3 guys. Do I believe in those 3 to go out there and get the job done? If you do, I would probably disagree. But if you believe in them, go ahead. Trot them out there. Go ahead. Go up against Jared Goff and that Lions offense. Go out against J.J. McCarthy and the Vikings receivers. Caleb Williams in year 2 and the Bears receivers. Like the NFC North has some really talented dudes. Go ahead and go against them. Put your 3 there. Now, if you say, why don't we'll draft someone? I would say, all right, you can look at the draft talent right now, but is Will Johnson from Michigan? 1, will he even be there? 2, coming off injury concerns. Most of these guys in the cornerback position after Travis Hunter, who's not going to be available, have some injury concerns. Benjamin Morrison from Notre Dame. We really like him. We saw him a lot. He's very good. Missed a lot of last season.
Yeah, but even if that weren't the case, drafting a guy hoping they'll be an All-Pro in year 1 is totally unreasonable.
That's
the only guy available that has All-Pro potential for the Packers at this point is Jaire, because he's done it twice.
So that's the situation for a Packers fans. Consider it if you're just fed up with Jaire and him missing time. I get it. It sucks when your guy's out, especially last year missing the big games down the stretch of the season. But he's the best dude you have. And you need cornerback. I know they're all talking about pass rusher. That's a huge issue, but I think cornerback could be the one that could sink the Packers next year if it's not addressed more or unless someone steps up. And I'm not sure I think Nixon or Valentine will step up to the degree they have to. With Jaire, you do have a cornerback 1 when he's on the field. He was the best guy on the team last year when he played. So before you're willing to
reunite Jaire and Rasul Douglas, just run back that 2022 secondary.
So we'll see. I mean, we'll see what happens here. Nate Hobbs, another guy who has injury concerns. So this Packer cornerback room, one way or another, is going to have some question marks. But you're right, I believe. Bringing Jaire back gives you the best chance to have that elite defense. And we'll see what happens. They still need edge rusher, 100%. And I'd be very surprised if you saw the Packers go somewhere other than edge rusher or corner to start this draft. Okay.
Unless a receiver they really like falls. I think that's the other option.
Yeah, unless
Mr. I hate football.
Yeah, T-Mac falls and they get the guy who hates football.
For the record, if you're just watching this on the breakout, we ran a segment. We think that he hates football story is kind of ridiculous.
Yeah,
don't take us seriously on that.
Yeah, we like T-Mac. I feel bad that that's going on. Okay, let's hit some NFL draft coverage right here, Ziggy. And unnamed, we'll be talking about odds from Unnamed Sportsbooks. So Unnamed Sportsbook currently has Ashton Jeanty as a favorite to go to the Raiders at -105. The next teams on the list are the Bears in 2nd, Cowboys 3rd, Saints 4th, and Jaguars 5th. The Raiders are picking 7th overall. They're 7th, right? Or are they 6th?
I thought they were 8. No, they're 6. You're right.
They're 6? Okay.
Sorry, I knew they were even. I forgot.
So the Raiders at number 6 overall would be taking Jeanty. And it's been kind of fun watching him soar up these draft boards where originally people were saying maybe he goes in the early 20s. Then it was Dallas at 12. Now we're all the way up to Las Vegas at 6. Jack would hate that take with drafting a running back high. But when you do look at running backs recently taken in the first round, Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, I think Najee Harris, say what you want about him, but consistently goes for over 1,000 yards. A lot of the running backs taken in the first round recently have been very good players. And when you look at those Bijan and Jahmyr Gibbs picks, I think transformative players for the offenses that they're on. 2 questions for you, Ziggy. 1, do you think that Jeanty going at 6 is too high for him? And 2nd, for the Raiders, do you think that that's the right approach to combating Mahomes and Herbert and Sean Payton and the offenses that the offensive minds they're going against and talents is build up that defense and strengthen the running game as opposed to trying to build out a dynamic passing attack and outscore them?
One of the things I think people don't often think about, especially in the early first round of the NFL draft, is that guys get paid a fair amount of money if you're taking them very early, and the salary falls off very, very quickly. So this year, if you're taking number 6 in the NFL draft, you'll be making about $8 million a year. If you're taking 12, you'll be making just under $5 million a year. So there's a huge drop off in terms of how much you're paying. Now, why am I talking about that? I think especially in a position like running back, you have to look and think about whether or not he's not just providing value, but providing value relative to the amount you're paying. If you're drafting Ashton Jeanty at number 6, you're going to be paying him from day one like a top 10 running back before he's done anything in the NFL. Meanwhile, if you take him at like 12 or 13 or wherever he's being projected, you'll be paying him in like the 20s to 30s. So that's already sort of one thing to think about. It's just, is he producing the value? Now, setting that aside, I know people don't want to talk numbers too much. Is that what makes sense for the Raiders? The Raiders are a weird team, and that clearly they're trying to compete, right? They traded for Geno Smith. They gave Max Crosby that huge extension. That's not necessarily what I would have done if I were managing the team, but that's the direction they're going. So insofar as you want to compete, I can see the desire to add a lot of talent. The thing I think, though, is just if your draft pick hits, if Ashton Jeanty hits, he's producing for you at the level of like a $10 to $12 million a year player, like what Josh Jacobs is doing for the Packers right now. On the other hand, if you take an edge rusher or a tackle when they hit, they're producing for you at the level of a $30 million a year player, even more. So I just don't think very early in the NFL draft, no matter what you think about Ashton Jeanty, and let's not forget, there have been plenty of running backs taken early in the rounds of the NFL draft, early in the first round that just haven't produced nearly what people thought they would. And they were all surefire guaranteed hits too. It's revisionist to go back and say they weren't.
Yep.
I don't think it makes a lot of sense for the Raiders to do that. That team has so many needs at so many different positions. I get that Raiders fans, like last year, like the year before, see themselves as a sneaky contender for the AFC West, the team that can go on a run. I just want to see a little bit more talent here. I don't want Christian Wilkins, who can't play and is no good, being the third best player on my team.
It's, I think you said a lot of really...
Sorry, producer Zach.
Yeah, sorry, Zach. I think you said a lot of really interesting things there, Ziggy, about Jeanty. One of them, with the money that he'd get at 6 is pretty high. But another thing about taking the running back early, again, as someone who grew up rooting for Adrian Peterson, I think that I probably overvaluate.
Hey, if he's going to be Adrian Peterson, you should take...
No, yeah. But I mean, you can't expect that. But I'm saying I think I've always kind of overrated maybe the running back position because I grew up and that was the only thing we had. Christian Ponder was throwing for 60 yards against the Seahawks and Peterson would have 200. It was basically flipped the passing stats and the rushing stats for those Vikings teams. So I always like having a stud running back. I do believe that they change teams. A lot of people don't right now, but I think you saw that come back a little bit more this season. As far as the Raiders go, though, if you think he's going to be Gibbs or Bijan, which I'd imagine they would think he's going to be if you take him at 6.
Whether or not that's rational is a different question.
Yes, that's exactly the point here. And I look at where the Raiders are right now, and I'm with you. I understand what they're trying to do. They are trying to take a team that's been really bad for a really long time and just get back to playing competitive football, to competing for wild card spots. I mean, they're hoping the division, but it's probably a stretch with the Chiefs. Like you said, I don't know if that's the way I would have gone because I think your ceiling's capped. Like you're not winning the Super Bowl with Geno Smith. So drafting Ashton Jeanty here, again, you're already taking a guy who's how old is Jeanty? Is he 21, 22, right?
Yeah, he's not old.
So he's not old, but the prime years of Jeanty are going to be the next 4 or 5 years probably. If you're already taking 2, maybe 3 of them with Geno, it's kind of like I would have just blown it up and tried to start over and find your quarterback. But given that the Raiders are where they are, I think it probably makes a little more sense to go with a stud tackle or a stud defensive player and build up in that regard so that those guys who probably will last a little bit longer than Jeanty are in their primes when you're saying, okay, now we just need the quarterback. To me, the running back, the Lions were in perfect position where they had someone they could take and it was going to push them all over the top with Bijan or with Jahmyr Gibbs. You had an electric player. With Jeanty, it feels like, I don't know. I don't really love the fit for him in Vegas as much. I don't know if that's the best thing for Ashton Jeanty.
Yeah, a great running back, insofar as they transform your offense, they're force multipliers. Right, Derrick Henry wasn't able to carry the Titans to anything, but he was very effective with the Ravens. Mm-hmm. Saquon Barkley couldn't do anything for the Giants. When he went to the Eagles, he was transformative. Josh Jacobs couldn't do anything with the Raiders, made a big difference for the Packers. It's funny that you talk about Adrian Peterson being your experience. My experience with sure thing running backs, the first year I started watching football was 2017. You remember what running back went number 4 surefire thing in that draft?
Surefire thing number 4 in 2017?
In the 2017 NFL draft. The guy everybody thought was going to transform a mediocre offense.
2017.
Dave Johnson.
No, this was our freshman year of college, right?
Yeah.
Or this was our senior year of high school.
This was we just graduated. So we were entering into college.
We're entering into college.
The fact that you don't remember.
No, wait.
this guy.
Dalvin Cook was drafted that year. Who was drafted with Dalvin? Kamara was in that draft, right?
Yeah, it wasn't them, obviously.
No, it wasn't Dalvin. Wasn't Kamara. Wasn't this the
I'll tell you,
unbelievable?
Christian McCaffrey was in this draft, but he was not the first running back selected.
Oh my gosh, who was in that draft? Why can't I remember this? Fournette? Was he in there?
Yeah, it was Leonard Fournette. He went number 4. He was a surefire thing. He was going to transform the Jaguars.
I mean, he did transform the Jaguars. You can't say.
He was good for them for 1 year when they went to the AFC Championship and then couldn't get a second contract, became a bum, stole a ring from the Buccaneers.
Yeah, Leonard Fournette, I think, had a solid.
Leonard Fournette.
No disrespect. No disrespect. You just called him a bum.
Yeah, I apologize for that, Leonard. You were better than that, but you were not worth the number 4 overall pick.
But like
you look at players you could have drafted instead of him, right? Like Patrick Mahomes, Marshawn Lattimore, Hassan Reddick, Deshaun Watson, Marlon Humphrey, Jonathan Allen. Like there were TJ Watt went at the end of that round.
Well, I mean,
like,
had you taken
many players you could have taken, you didn't need Leonard Fournette.
Had you taken a McCaffrey or maybe even a Dalvin Cook or a
Christian
Kamara,
McCaffrey wouldn't have done anything on the Jaguars either.
Well, yeah. So I think this is the whole point here that we're kind of saying is I think Ashton Jeanty might be great. But I don't know I don't think he's the right fit for what Vegas needs right now.
Here's what will happen if the Raiders draft him. Ashton Jeanty will be a transformative player on the next team he lands on. Like he'll be good of the Raiders. They won't go anywhere, right? Maybe they'll make the playoffs with Geno if they have a good year. And then eventually he's going to get fed up and asked out and they'll let him go. Maybe they'll franchise tag him. Maybe they won't. And then he'll be great with whatever contender he lands.
Yeah, I mean, he'll
go to the Bears with prime Caleb Williams. They'll win 3 Super Bowls.
I don't know about that, but the Bears. But yeah, that's where the interesting debate comes. Where if you think he's going to be good, there's probably a lot of Raiders fans who are like, well, if you guys think he's going to be really good, we want him on our team. I just think that they need to. There are other places that they should build up on. I just don't think they're going anywhere anytime soon. And maybe this just goes back to me being unfair about the Geno signing. Like I don't mind it. I don't mind being competitive, but I think you're in the industry of winning Super Bowls. So it's good to be competitive and get back there. And look, maybe too, the other thing, this Geno thing is probably 2 years with the Raiders, really? It's probably going to go on for 2 years.
Yeah,
so,
and I mean,
if you have Jeanty and you find your guy over these next 2 years, then it could all come into play. I don't want to make it sound like I don't think Jeanty is a horrible pick. On draft night, I'm not going to sit up here and say they messed up because I think he could be a really, really good player. But
the Raiders next year, there's only one team with a lower win total than that.
Yeah.
The Cleveland Browns. Like they're not expected to do anything. So I don't think going all in on this is our year makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So
at least the Bears,
they'll take
you can
Jeanty.
sort of imagine that he's going to transform your offense. I don't think he will, but I can see the thinking there. The Cowboys, whatever the Cowboys are, I never understand anything they're doing. But yeah.
Well, the Raiders will take him. The Raiders will take Jeanty. Like that's probably going to happen. A couple other interesting notes here on the draft. Again, unnamed sportsbook has as the top 3, the order right now. Cam Ward minus 1350 to go number 1 overall. Abdul Carter minus 300 to go number 2 overall. And Travis Hunter minus 150 to go number 3 overall. Shedeur is the second favorite for each of the second pick and third pick in this situation. I'm not sure. Now, Cam Ward going number 1, could that be the Giants or the Browns potentially trading up and taking Cam? Is it Tennessee taking? It's probably Tennessee taking Cam.
We have decisive evidence, I think, that Tennessee wants to stick. They keep talking like they're going to stick. They have number 1. There's no need for smoke screens, and they weren't seriously linked to any of the free agent quarterbacks. You only do that if you're sticking at number 1.
So when I'm looking at this here, I'm saying, okay, if we have Cam going number 1, let's say it's to the Titans. Now at 2 and 3 here, if Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter go, that doesn't necessarily mean the Browns or Giants don't get Shedeur. It could be that they trade back into a spot where they think Shedeur might fall to them. Or even Jaxson Dart now, who's climbing into the mix, and maybe not that high, but they might see Jaxson Dart as a possibility towards the end of the top 10 even. So do you think the Browns or the Giants here, though, would be making a mistake not taking a QB? Whether it's passing and taking Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter, or trading back and then missing out, do you think they'll look back and regret not grabbing Shedeur at that top 3's pick?
I think that with respect to players you're taking early in the NFL draft, I only want to take players at positions that I cannot get any other way.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's only a couple positions that's true for. That's true for quarterback, right? Like, unless you're, say, like Matthew Stafford and you're the Rams, the one team he wants to go to, or you're the Jets and you're the one team Aaron Rodgers wants to go to, you are not getting a top-level quarterback in the draft or by trading or free agency. Similarly, right, like offensive tackle, edge rusher, pass rushing, defensive tackle, like those positions, the really good guys in those player positions, you can't get them in trading. You can't get them in free agency. Very, very rarely. I mean, Trent Williams was like an exception because he almost died and the Commanders let him. So he held out.
Yeah.
It's very, very rare that you get the good talent at those positions in free agency or in trades. It's only the mediocre players you can get. So if you don't believe, I'm a believer in taking quarterbacks early and often as much as possible. But NFL scouts, they're not perfect, but they can tell when a guy's like Malik Willis, sorry Malik, and probably just not great. Kenny Pickett, same thing. Like when quarterbacks aren't taken early, they're very unlikely to be good. So if you're really confident in your edge rusher, like Abdul Carter, you really like a defensive tackle, you're like an offensive tackle, I think you can justify passing on a second-rate quarterback prospect for there. On the other hand, wide receiver and cornerback, those are guys you can get in trades. Those are guys you can get in free agency. Now it's harder, right? So if you really buy Travis Hunter as a transcendent talent, like you can't get Jamar Chase in the trade. You can't get Justin Jefferson in free agency. But even the best cornerbacks you can, right? Remember when Jalen Ramsey went to the Rams at the top of his game? You can get those guys in trading or sometimes in free agency. So Travis Hunter is a unique talent. I think if you really buy him as a perennial all-pro at one of the positions he's at, which he may be, you can take him. Otherwise, I really like going for Abdul Carter. Otherwise, I really like going for a quarterback. Even if you're not sold on them, even if you think there's a low chance they'll pan out, if the quarterback pans out, you now have a Super Bowl window. There is no other position in the entire NFL where that's true.
Well, that's what you always say as well, throwing darts, right? You're like, no pun intended with Jaxson Dart here, but you're throwing darts at a dartboard and you're hoping that one of those QBs, until you land them, keep throwing. And once you get them, yeah, you become a Super Bowl contender. And this is sort of the situation the Giants and the Browns are going to be in here is if you do pass on Shedeur Sanders and wind up taking Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter, who everyone thinks are the two best athletes in this draft, probably the two best players in this draft. If Shedeur turns into a perennial Pro Bowler and an all-pro caliber player, or if he has a CJ Stroud or Jaden Daniels-esque rookie season somewhere else, you're still sitting back there going, crap, we messed up. We really messed up. That is the biggest potential error that those teams could make. That's the worst case scenario. Even if Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter are awesome, if Shedeur's great, you messed up. So it's a tricky situation. And I would say, yeah, I'm kind of with you here. If you don't believe in Shedeur, then I wouldn't take him. But if you do have that hint in the back of your mind, like, yeah, it could be there, I think I'd roll the dice. And I may at least over Hunter. Carter, you could probably talk me into just with edge rusher and.
Yeah, I mean, it's if you think he's going to be Myles Garrett or there's players he could turn into.
Cleveland is really an interesting one with taking Carter second, because if you do pair Abdul Carter and Myles Garrett, I mean, that
will terrorize the NFL.
Yeah, like that could be sick. But as amazing as your defense could be, if you're not afraid of that offense, yeah, they're not going anywhere. Like
you'll be just like the Cleveland Browns were a couple of years
ago. Yes, yeah, like that's exactly what you are. So you take Carter and it could be awesome, but is there like how high is that ceiling in Cleveland? Whereas if you take Shedeur and it bombs, like all right, but you're same situation probably.
Well, and the way people usually respond to these is they say, well, just take the player that's going to be good. The fact is, player evaluation is very, very hard, and you don't know who's going to be good, right? Like I think back to that 2017 draft, everybody sort of knew Myles Garrett was number one. A lot of people thought Solomon Thomas was right behind him.
Oh, everyone, yeah. You never really know.
Seeing some people wonder on draft night, like, should Solomon Thomas have gone number one? And if you don't really pay attention, like the 49ers, you're probably thinking, who is that guy? right? Complete bust. Did absolutely nothing for them. So it's very hard. And of course, if you knew which players were going to hit, right? If you know that Ashton Jeanty is going to turn into a Hall of Famer, you should take him. If you know you're going to get the best talented players, that's what you should do. But nobody can do that. Nobody can just figure out which players are going to be good. So that's why I think this macro strategy of thinking, where are the positions we need? If you think there's a 40% chance the quarterback hits versus a 70% chance the cornerback hits, what does that mean?
It's funny.
NFL scouts, right? Guys who spend 16 hours a day for months away from their family grinding the road to watch backup D2 linebackers. Those guys don't do any better on average than all the guys on the couch making their aggregate big boards. That's true. They consistently do worse than the crowd. So like the thought that you can just have the GM that knows how to scout or the scout team that knows how to scout and just hit every single time, that's not going to happen.
There's a degree.
People think they have that because you look at the Eagles, right? And they always seem to have talent. But that's because in general, they very rarely target players. They target positions. They take Jalen Hurts when they've already got their quarterback of the future. They stock up on the offensive and defensive line and just hope some of those guys will hit. So I think that's the strategy to do. But again, like if the quarterbacks aren't good, and I think back to, it was the 2021 draft of Kenny Pickett, right?
I believe.
Or was it 22? No, it's 22.
I think it's 22.
21 was the one of all the quarterbacks. 22 was the one of none of them.
Yeah.
And everybody just agrees the quarterbacks are no good, which isn't quite what you're seeing this year, but you're seeing something closer to that than 2021. Like 8 quarterbacks went in the first round. No. You don't have to force yourself to take a player you hate. That doesn't make any sense.
So if you were the Giants or Browns, though, yeah, and you're torn. Like if you're like, I kind of like we like Shedeur.
If you were torn, you always take the quarterback.
Got it. Okay.
Period.
Got it. Okay.
I think if you're torn, you always take the quarterback, even if you have anybody who's not Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow.
Oh, just in general.
If I'm the Dolphins and there's a quarterback I like, you bet I'm taking the quarterback. If I'm the Lions and there's a quarterback,
can you imagine if
I'm taking the quarterback?
If this show was running an NFL team, it would be so much fun. I mean, that like it could be a disaster.
If any of our fans have $6 or $7 billion, we will run your franchise.
If anyone listening can buy the team, we'll run it. And you know, I feel pretty good about our chances. Like Tyrann Mathieu would have been on our team. We probably would have drafted Jalen Carter. I mean, this would have been like, we can go back a long time. We're taking those dudes that people were passing on, and they'd be on this team, whoever it is. It would be loaded, and we'd have a million quarterbacks.
We just wouldn't have a running back.
Well, no, are you kidding? Oh, I'd make sure we have a running back. I'd make sure we have a running back, and we'd probably have a really good one too. It would. I was thinking, Ziggy, you were mentioning like you never know about players. I don't know why this one sticks out, but I always think about Aaron Curry, the linebacker who was drafted to the Seahawks. I'm trying to remember where. Was he? Yeah, he was Wake Forest. Back in the 2009 drafts, this is way before you were watching, but I was so locked in on Percy Harvin for the Vikings. I was reading everything about this draft. Aaron Curry was supposed to be a stud, and ultimately, kind of flamed out. But I always think of that. Like, there's always dudes that I'm not trying to give a strike to Aaron Curry here, but like you never know.
Play out his rookie contract. It didn't work out.
Yeah. So you never know. Like a total beast in college, and a surefire thing. It felt like sometimes it just doesn't work out. And our buddy Matt Ziccato, good friend of Weston Dell, big Seahawks fan, I'm sure he remembers the Aaron Curry draft selection and all the hype that went into that. But
there's only one player I've ever put my foot down on a show and said I'm 100% certain they will be an all-pro star, and that was Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase, I truly could not imagine a world where he was not one of the best at his position immediately in the NFL. And that turned out. So I'm never making another prediction like that ever again. Getting it right once, I'm probably never doing better than that.
It's funny when the 49ers took Brock Purdy, I was like, yeah, this guy is a leader. And you remember me saying this, right? I was like, Brock Purdy.
I remember you saying, I think Brock Purdy could be a $60 million a year quarterback.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember saying that. I remember Lamar being drafted. I was like, that guy probably should have gone one. I see multiple MVPs. I
will say on the Lamar thing, I was truly pounding the table all night saying, this is why you take the quarterback. Why are you letting this guy fall? He can play quarterback for you.
Do you remember when Mahomes was drafted and the Bills trade that pick? And I said, that's going to ruin the Buffalo Bills. I said, this guy's about to be the greatest of all time. and torture Buffalo.
Yeah, this guy is going to make Buffalo Bills fans remember the number 13. You kept saying
Forever.
13, and I didn't know why. I'm like, is this Tredescadelophobia?
All right, the very last
April
thing.
Fool's segment.
Yeah, this is the April Fool's. The very last thing before we get out of here, because we have to wrap up the show. I have been seeing Jaxson Dart moving up draft boards pretty quickly. Mel Kiper Jr. had him going number 9 overall to the Saints in his latest mock draft. Now, whatever stock you want to put into Mel's mock drafts, I'll leave that for you. But it is interesting seeing now, the Steelers at 21 are in play, the Saints at 9, the Rams at 26, all these potential places that Jaxson Dart can go. And originally when this process started, it was, okay, he's probably going to be a second rounder here. But I always believed that the quarterbacks rise up the boards. And very rarely, you did see it with Kenny Pickett in 2022. Kenny Pickett, most people thought was a, third round talent, right? I don't even know about second. And you just see, it's kind of what you were saying, that throw darts at the dartboard. A lot of times it doesn't work, but teams are willing to do that. I remember one of the best ones that I remember seeing was Carson Wentz moving up that board all the way. Him and Goff shooting up. Goff was probably going to go number 1 the whole time, but Wentz winds up going number 2. Baker going number 1. Like, you see these quarterbacks rise. Last year, didn't I say last year that there would be like 5 quarterbacks in the top 10? I think. I can't remember if it wound up being 5.
I didn't believe you, but it came basically true.
But it's sort of what you see in these drafts. So Jaxson Dart.
It's not. Even though guys rise up the board, that doesn't always mean they actually do, right? People are having Malik Willis going in the early first round. He dropped to round 3.
Yes. So, sometimes it happens the other way. But with Jaxson Dart here, I'd be very surprised at this point if he doesn't go in the first round. If he goes in the top 10, I actually wouldn't even be totally shocked. But my guess is he winds up going in the top 20. I might. Yeah, I think top 20 is where I draw the line. I want to say I would like to go up to top 15, but I can see a world where it slides past. But with the Steelers picking at 21, I can see a world where some teams try and jump them. Because I think Dart to the Steelers actually would be kind of interesting. Like, when you're talking about a team that needs a new quarterback, and even if they do get Aaron Rodgers, if you like Jaxson Dart and you want to throw a dart on that quarterback dartboard, do you think he, at this point in time, you'd lock him into the first round?
So I'm glad Jack's not here, because I'm going to say something that would aggravate Jack to no end. I cannot for the life of me. I've been watching the film. I've been looking at the scouting reports from the scouts I sort of trust online. I've been seeing what people say about him. I cannot find a difference between Matt Corral and Jaxson Dart. They played in the same offense. They had all the same strengths. Quality ball placement, decent athlete, can escape pressure, incredible at getting the ball to the first read. Downsides, only an average or slightly above average on. And we don't know if they can do anything beyond a first read because they're in the Ole Miss system. And when they're asked to go beyond the first read at Ole Miss, it's a disaster. Like, go and look up the scouting reports. You will see identical scouting reports for these players. Go and watch the film. They will have exactly the same strengths and weaknesses. And yet it seems like we've forgotten Matt Corral was completely hyped up by the Ole Miss system, which, no disrespect to what they do at Ole Miss, right? It's an incredible college offense. They should keep doing what they're doing. But we've seen over and over again, the numbers that you get in that system are fool's gold. So I don't understand the Jaxson Dart hype at all. I think he's worth taking in the second or third round. Maybe you sit back and say, oh, well, maybe he can get better. Will he go in the first round? It's possible. You only need one team to like the guy for him to go in the first round. You need 32 teams to not like the guy for him to not. But I don't see it. I do not see what this guy has done to justify being a first round pick, given that we know for a fact quarterbacks of his profile have been disasters.
So I guess here's the question I'd have for you is that if you are the Steelers at 21 and you sort of like if you sort of, that's pretty funny. You sort of like Jaxson Dart. They have to do the pick according to your theory, right?
Of course.
What you're saying is I don't see how you would fall in love with the guy.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's at 21 is a totally different story than top 10.
Yes.
You're
agree.
paying way less. The draft capital is way more premium. I mean, realistically, right? People are talking about Jaxson Dart going in like the top Like people are projecting him going 3, 5, 6, 7.
Oh,
right?
yeah. It's starting to come out that some teams have him above Shedeur.
So it's in order to move up. Let's talk about number 5, right? In order to move up for number 5, you'd probably need to trade 3 picks in the 20s to move up there, right?
Yeah.
So the draft capital you're spending if you draft him where the Steelers are is much, much lower. So
Okay,
I'm a lot less opposed to drafting him there. And it fits with my philosophy of take quarterbacks and hope they work. I think it's unlikely he works out, but I see no reason not to make the dart throw on Jaxson Dart if you're getting him late enough.
So given everything that you just said about Jaxson Dart, if the Steelers draft him number 21 on draft night and Jack's, our guy Jack.
The Steelers to the Super Bowl, he will place a 3, maybe even 4-digit bet on the Super Bowl.
And Jack's going crazy. Are you going to sit back here and say, probably a bad pick? Or are you saying, yep, I get it. I'm cool with it.
I'm going to say I don't like Dart, the prospect. I don't like that the processing is bad. I don't like how bad the decision making is. The ball placement when he's under pressure is disastrous. The mechanics are only okay. The deep ball accuracy is worse than Matt Corral. The pocket presence raises issues. The footwork raises issues. The offensive system makes him impossible to evaluate. But he's a quarterback, and he might be good, so you should take him. But that's not if the Steelers take him at 21, they're not thinking that. They're thinking, we believe this is our guy. And like Kenny Pickett, they're then not going to even consider taking a quarterback for 2 or 3 more years. Mm. That's the mistake. You should take Jaxson Dart, and if you're not blown away, take another quarterback.
Okay.
But look,
our team would be.
He's guaranteed to be terrible. I'm saying I don't understand the hype around him, but I think you should be taking quarterbacks whether or not Ziggy understands the hype.
Our team
Frankly,
would be
whether or not your scouts understand the hype. You should be taking
Lamar Jackson. Our right tackle would be Patrick Mahomes.
You know why NFL GMs don't overrule their scouts? It's not because scouts are I think that much more likely to be correct than intelligent observers, or because they have 100% trust in their scouts. It's because you can't tell the guy who spent 16 hours a day for 6 months away from his family, scouting every single player in the world of college football, that, yeah, this is his opinion, but I don't really care because the numbers say quarterbacks produce $2 million a year to more surplus value. You can't tell your scouts that. And that's what you're telling them when you make the pick. I genuinely think this explains a non-trivial amount of NFL GM behavior. But yeah, I'm not sold on Jaxson Dart. I don't see the hype. I don't think he's going to be a successful NFL player, and I would take him at the end of the first round.
Could you imagine the discussions in our draft room? The 4 of us.
No, we could not have a scout team because it would be me versus Jack, and the scouts would hate both.
Yeah, it would just.
Neither of us are actually. I mean, I watch film for fun, but I'm not a scout. I can only see what I see. Those guys, when you look at the film guys on YouTube, they see things that I wouldn't see if I spent 20 years studying the game. Jack just goes off vibes. I just go off numbers. You go off vibes, but try and disguise it a little bit more. They would hate it.
Yeah, it would be. Can you imagine the Jeanty thing coming up? Jack would be like, I hate run. No, never a running back. And I'd be there going what? And then you'd come in, you'd given the analytics, you'd be like, well, actually, we should probably take a look here at a Jaxson Dart maybe. And it would just be a disaster. It would be, but we'd probably wind up making a good pick. Zach would then have to be the voice of reason, which it's a whole other can of worms that would. I mean, Zach's the same guy who came out here and remember what was your Josh Allen take a couple of years ago? What'd you say about Josh Allen?
Josh Allen is mediocre.
Yeah, Josh Allen's mediocre.
Still is mediocre.
It would be Super Bowl in 3 years. Within 3 years, Super Bowl.
Has he won a Super Bowl?
Yeah.
So what?
Has two.
I don't want to hear the defending MVP called mediocre. I don't.
Yeah, this is angry Dolphins fan vents. All right.
I know you wish that you would Josh Allen instead of Tua.
You're right.
It's okay. You can admit it.
You're right, but he's still mediocre.
We'll have to do on the next episode Tua versus, and we'll go through every starting quarterback in the league and see how many Zach would take over Tua for next year.
Probably 90% of them.
All right, we'll wrap it up right here. It was a fun show. We'll be back with more over the next few weeks as the NFL draft approaches. Ziggy, great job. Way to sponsor the Bean Club there. Again, we don't have sponsors, but we'll shout them out.
If Rancho Gordo reaches out, I will plug them every single episode.
Gosh, that'd be awesome.
Go and get your beans. They just had their spring 2025 arrivals. They sold out of most of the good beans, but I think they still got some of those California Coronas. So you should crack open some of those.
What's the company called?
Rancho Gordo. It's run by this guy, Steve Sando out of Napa.
Done.
That's what the RG stands for.
We want the sponsorship. All right. We'll see you guys later this week.